Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today we're going to be checking out and showing you how I installed the Seaflo Battery Disconnect Switch. So this is the battery disconnect switch, and what this is going to allow you to do is essentially isolate your batteries so you can more or less turn power off from your batteries. And this is going to work out real well for things like campers, motorhomes, boats, things that kind of have a tendency to sit for a little bit of time, whether it be for the week before you get to take them out, or even during, your storage time, or storage season rather. And what happens, I'm sure you've all experienced this before, where the batteries are left on and it sits for a while and you come back and they're dead. And then it never seems like they take a charge. You got to fight it and go buy expensive batteries, and it's just kind of a big pain. And so by isolating them, it's going to prevent that draw that kind of just happens, even if you have everything turned off. And that's going to really help, keep your batteries tip top and in good working order, and allowing you to either charge them back up real quick, not have to charge them at all, and not really have to worry about it too much. So, it's a nice deal. It's really quick and simple to do, and it sure beats having to go up front and get tools out and do it manually every single time, taking the wires off the battery and things like that. So anything that can help streamline our process, if you ask me, it's definitely worth it. The switch is going to have a couple different things that you can do with it. So of course we'll be able to turn it off, and when you turn it on, that's going to send power to our camper, or your starting system if it's on a boat or something like that. But then so it's on right now. If you click it down one, that's going to turn it off, and then if you do it again, it's going to stay off, but it's going to allow you to remove this key. And I'm not super crazy about it. I don't think I'd love it or hate it, really. Kind of personal preference and up to you. I mean, I could see the point of it. You can pull this out. It kind of acts as a theft deterrent too, a little bit. That way, people aren't going to be able to have your batteries turned on and be able to start things up and things like that. And if you do pull that key out, it gives you a cover there too, just to help keep that moisture and everything else out of there. So honestly, it's a switch. It's a really simple device. Allows you to turn your batteries off and turn your power off rather, and back on. And in the long run, it's going to be beneficial. It's going to really help kind of prevent you from having to fight those battery issues and take things apart and replace them and everything else. So honestly, I personally feel like every camper, motorhome, boat, things like that should have one of these on it right out of the factory. Really don't know why they don't put them on there, but that's okay. We can always do it ourselves and roll with it like that. Now, compared to some of the other ones, they're all pretty good. It's a switch. You can't really mess it up too bad. There is some different styles of them though, which are pretty neat. You can have dual battery isolators. So, for example, I actually have one on my fishing boats. I have two batteries in it, start battery and an accessory battery for like my trolling motor and lights and things like that. And that allows, the dual battery isolator allows you to really have complete control. So let's say you just wanted to run your start battery. You'd put it on number one, and then let's say if you wanted to run your trolling motor battery, just the trolling motor, you could put it on number two. If you wanted to run both of them and kind of have two big batteries, you could put it on all. And so it really kind of gives you ultimate adjustability there. And those obviously too allow you to shut the power off of them too. So depending on your setup, it really just depends what you're shooting for and which one's going to be best for you. As far as how this thing's made, it feels pretty nice. It don't feel, super cheap or anything like that. Don't feel like it's going to fall apart in your hands. It is relatively compact too. About as small as it can get, honestly. So you're going to be able to stuff this just about anywhere you want for the most part. And as far as, you know, what this is rated for in terms of power, it's gonna have some pretty high numbers. It's gonna be rated for 275 continuous amps, which is really high. I mean, you should never even come close to exceeding that. 450 amps intermittently, and 1250 cranking amps, which that is really, really high too. I mean, to say if you put this on a boat, I mean, you shouldn't even come close, especially if everything's in good working order. So, you know, you'll have this, you know, and as long as all your wiring and everything is sized appropriately, you'll be in really good shape. But other than that, you know, as far as getting the switch installed, it's really not too bad. I mean, you will have to mount it up, and you know, there's 2 terminals on the back that you route your wires to. Honestly, the part that takes the longest is just routing all your wires and kind of finding the spot that you want to put this. So a little bit of a thought before you kind of dive into this, and you know, think about how you want things to work. That'll go a long way. But you know, as long as you stay focused, it really shouldn't give you too many issues. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and I'll show you how I put this one on now. To begin your installation, you're first going to want to find a spot to mount up your disconnect switch. Now keep in mind, everybody's situation is going to be set up a little bit different on where you want to mount things and how you want to run things and everything else. So how I did this one here, just use it as kind of a guide to kind of get you going in the right direction. But with that said, I chose to mount up ours here in the front and this cargo compartment. So the way I did mine is I mounted it to this panel, pretty flimsy panel though, so I took another piece of wood I had laying around, kind of just reinforced it, screwed it to that panel, and secured the switch to it. So here's what the back side of it looks like. I just used a hole saw to drill out an opening there. And here's our wires connected. But before we get too carried away up here, I want to show you, go to our battery area and show you how I ran our wires and what wire does what. So let's go ahead and check that out, and we can come back to this in a moment. Up here at your batteries, there's a couple things we need to do. First one being disconnect your main battery cable, your positive side. In our case, it was this one here. And what I've done is come up through the bottom here, drilled a small hole, and used a bushing and ran our wire up into that compartment there where our switch is at. Once you have that push through there, I just took some silicone, kind of sealed that up. And so we get that fed up in there, and we're gonna have one more wire that we need to take care of. And that will be the new main battery cable here. So unfortunately, this doesn't come with any terminals or new wiring or anything like that. So if you need some, you will have to source it. But with that said, you know, this is going to our power post here on our battery. You obviously want to leave this end disconnected until we have the whole switch hooked up and everything. So this would actually go on last, but you know, you can kind of just get it routed in position and get ready to get hooked up. But so this is simply just going to get dropped down, and we have it literally just routed the same way that we did our other positive wire. Just drilled that hole and ran it up into our compartment. So back up here, you know, here's where our wires run. And whenever you route your wires, you know, do it to where it makes sense. Don't rub them up against sharp metal or anything like that. But so here is our main power coming from the battery post, coming into the switch. And here was the original main one. So that comes and gets connected. And so what happens is we have 12 volts here. This post will be hot at all times. Whenever we have the switch on, that's going to allow power to come through this wire and into our camper. That way all of our accessories will work. I do want to mention this wire here that's going to the cold side of our switch. That's, you know, this is just something we had extra, and we're just running a couple 12 volt outlets up inside of the camper, and it turns out that our wiring was able to drop down right here. And so we can also use this kind of as a power post, you know, so power will also go to those extra things that we installed without having to come all the way down to the battery or anything like that. So if you're doing something like that, just make sure if you want it to be turned off whenever you disconnect the switch to have it hooked up on the side of the switch that has no power whenever you have it into the off position. And that'll finish up our look of the Seaflo Battery Disconnect Switch.